Greetings and salutations and welcome to Illegitimate Legends. This is a show where I like to talk about some of the more unusual League of Legends builds. And this unusual League of Legends build is a Sivir build, which I actually like because it's Sivir, and Sivir used to be one of my favorite champions, used to dominate the mid lane with her back in preseason, but, you know, that doesn't happen so much anymore because she's Sivir. And she is what some would call grossly underpowered. This positioning actually seeks to deal with that. It's a Bruiser Sivir top lane build, and I can't take the credit because someone told me about it. That said, I've put my own spin on this idea of the build, and I think it's unique enough that I can call it sort of my own, but all credit to anyone who's come up with a Bruiser top Sivir before. It's very, very good, and I thank you for letting me know. The reason why it works is because Sivir is a ranged champion and Bruiser is a melee place. It's that simple. Granted, almost everybody who goes into top lane has some sort of gap close, but they also have a tendency to deal a lot of ability damage, particularly very early. In the instance of Wukong, he can slap me with his stick. In the instance of Jax, he jumps onto your face and beats you down. Champions like that are very, very vulnerable to Spell Shield. Spell Shield is possibly one of the most powerful abilities in the game in that it protects you from something and grants you a large portion of mana back. Double the mana cost, if I remember correctly, and so you can use that to prevent yourself from taking damage while constantly harassing the enemy champion with your ranged attacks. Boomerang Blade, Ricochet sometimes, I'm not too keen on how that's been since the rework. And just deal damage, protect yourself from damage. You won't win a flat-out trade because you're based too much in attack speed as a champion to really benefit from going in a straight fight, but because you can poke away at them much easier than they can poke away at you, makes it harder for them to get farm, and easier for you to do the same. So focus on that in the early game. Then the thing that makes the difference, the aspect of this build that is everything to you, is the ultimate. That ultimate will win you teamfights. Like, almost flat out. It is so incredibly powerful because of the strength on yourself, the strength on your allies, and the strength on your minions. Many of you do not know, but her ultimate, last I checked, applies to minions, making you an incredibly powerful lane pusher if you need to be. And more importantly, even that little bit of extra damage is extra damage that your team is benefiting from. It's extra attack speed and movement speed in an abundance. So with that in mind, Sivir basically wants to survive, do what damage she can, maybe get a gank in from the jungler for some extra advantage, but survive until the mid-late game when teamfights start to happen and be built and ready for that mid-late game. I found that damage was good, but not as good as resistances. Sivir is one of the easiest champions to kill that I've ever seen. So you want to be able to survive long enough for your ult to take effect. You want to be able to spell shield the major damaging incoming to you, major damaging abilities, and you want to simply be there to pester them with your stupid amount of kiting ability. Slow them with a frozen mallet, because slows are fun and everyone loves them. And just generally be there. Soak up a bit of damage because you want a tanky build. Add to your team's damage output with a few abilities and with your ultimate. Consequently, one of the best items you can get early is a Zeke's Herald. Whilst you're not playing support, Zeke's Herald provides plenty of attack damage and lifesteal for your team. You know what synergizes with attack speed? Attack damage and lifesteal. Yeah. There's also enough health in that item that it's reasonably good to get early in your tanky top, and that little bit of lifesteal can make the difference. You can last hit and farm a lot easier than your opponent, simply by default. Beyond that, you need a frozen melon, and everything else is up to you. Those are the two core items of the build, and I couldn't actually settle my mind on what I wanted for the last spots. It depended too much on who we were fighting. Magic resist, armor, health, and damage are primary attributes you want, but how you get them, there's just so many options. It's very difficult to say. You will win not many fights, as I said, in the top lane, but you will win all the fights when it comes to team fights, and your tower pushing skills will be stupid. Just insanely good. Build a combination of damage and slows. You can get a... this is the hard one. Iceborne Gauntlet, the item that I almost never buy. Works really well. Turns out Ricochet's got a tiny cooldown at max level, and so in the later game, when you're using that all the time because you've got the mana, yeah, that's fun. People find that unpleasant, turns out. Which brings us to the other point. I mentioned you've got the mana in the late game. The thing you don't have is mana any other time. Mana is the most precious thing for Sivir because she spends almost all of it very, very quickly. Spell Shield is vital. You need to be able to cast it at all times. Cannot stress that enough. If you have Spell Shield grayed out, you need a pullback because that's the thing that's keeping you alive. Unless they're a champion like, say, Vladimir. Probably the worst example, but a champion who does their poke at a large amount of range and doesn't have so much of a gap close. Unless you're in that situation, you don't have much chance of being back away and being safe. If you're standing behind the minions against almost any other top lane champion, they will pounce on you with their gap close. If you don't have your spell shield to follow the major hit that comes afterwards, or block that gap close if that is their major hit, if you can't do that, you're fucked. Pure and simple, they will shred you to pieces, particularly in the very early game, like I've been saying, because you've got no health. Almost no resistances either. It's a very cruel world. Consequently, build the items that I've suggested. Your early game can consist of a wide variety of things, including an early sustain build, such as the Crystalline Flask, or you can go for an early sustain build with 2 regen beads, which is one of my favorites. However, 2 regen beads isn't necessarily the best thing in the world because you don't have the health to regenerate. Or you can go for a damage opener or a flat health opener. Flat health opener is where I liked to keep it. Have masteries that benefit your tankiness, strangely enough. Adding to your damage isn't that beneficial in the early game. Adding to your defenses is. The early game is where you're weakest. It's when you contribute almost nothing. And so that's the point where you need to survive. You need to struggle through that early game with the poking and the harassing. Get to the point where you start to make a difference in everything. And then you've pretty much won. Thank you all for watching. That is a tanky Bruiser top lane Sivir build. I hope you enjoy it, I hope you try it out, and I will see you all in a week's time with another build. Good night.